Hello. Namaskaram. Today is the very auspicious occasion of Brahma Navami. This is also the final day of the 9-day festival for the goddess, Santa Navaratri. 9 nights in the springtime, celebrated in Chaitra month. So it's a very auspicious day to begin. I'm going to be reading to you from my newly published book, the Shri Vidya and Navavarana Puja book. We will provide for you a link after this broadcast down in the comments or wherever we can find a place to put it, where you can purchase the book online if you would like to have a copy of it. International people trying to find the book outside of the USA are encouraged to look at the Amazon for their own country. There should be some option there for you. At least it should be possible to get a PDF of the text. So we'll go ahead and begin. The text begins with a prayer to Sri Mahaganapati. Om Aim Hrim Shrim. I bow humbly to my gurus, without whose grace this work would not be possible. I bow also to Lord Vinayaka, who removes obstacles, and the goddess Shakambhari, who nourishes all. May they bless those who sincerely approach this study of Shri Vidya with increased wisdom, peace, and bliss. Aim Klim Sauhu. Vinayaka is a name of Mahaganapati, of course. Vinayaka means the remover, and that's often interpreted as the remover of obstacles. Ganapati is also called Vigneshwara. Vigna means obstacle. Ishwara means the Lord, the ruler, the guider. So Lord Ganapati is the embodiment of the obstacle in the world. Lord Ganapati is the obstacle. He puts the obstacles in our path to bless us, to keep us from what's not good for us. And that's some of the symbolism of Lord Ganapati. He holds the pasha and the ankusha. Pasha is like a noose or a lasso, and he holds us back with this to protect us from the things that are not good for us. With the ankusha, the elephant goad, he goads us onward toward the things that are good for us. So he puts an obstacle in one place to divert us into a different direction, and he pushes us forward into the other direction. But if we pray to Lord Ganesha, we can remove the obstacles. And this is why we invoke Lord Vinayaka before any endeavor. There's other mystical reasons. He relates to the root chakra at the base of the spine, Muladhara chakra. The Ganesha Upanishad says, Muladhara sthitosi nityam. You, Lord, are eternally established at the Muladhara chakra at the base of the spine. They say generally we have to bring consciousness up to that Muladhara chakra. Most people are dwelling in the chakras below the base of the spine. Not as many people are aware of these, but they're chakras down the legs, to the knees, to the feet. They relate to lower states of consciousness. Anger, they dwell in this lower consciousness, in these hellish realms that relate to lower realms within the astral realm, the Antara Loka, the different Patala Loka, the different realms. So prayer to Ganesh helps to uplift our consciousness to the base of the spine, so then we can approach the other deities. Then we can approach Lord Murugan, Ganesha's brother. Then we can approach Lord Shiva, or the goddess Shakti. Then when we're centered in the base of the spine, the energy can move up through the central channel called the Sushumna Nadi. So Goddess Shakambhari is the form of the goddess we pray to here in this temple that we're building here in Virginia. She is a form of Goddess Durga. She relates to nourishment. She relates to the forest and nature, herbs, fruits, vegetables, vegetation in general. She has the protective qualities of Durga, especially when we travel through the forest or in the nighttime alone. She's very protective, but she also has this added quality of nourishment, kind of like Goddess Annapurna. So we pray to the goddess, we pray to our gurus. Of course, I wouldn't have any of this knowledge without the blessing of my gurus. So we'll continue on, and I'll begin to read to you a little bit today the preface of the book. Shri Vidya is a difficult subject to write about today. Many people have differing views on the subject. Additionally, a great deal of misunderstanding has arisen about the subject in recent years. Shri Vidya is a part of the system of Tantra and a part of the greater system of the Sanatana Dharma, which has also given the world the practice of yoga, Ayurveda, Jyotisha, and knowledge of chakras, mudras, tantra, yantras, mantras, and meditation. Shri Vidya has always been a very mystical and esoteric practice within the greater tradition of Dharma. It is not a path or a practice for the masses, but an extremely complex system of coming to know the goddess through dedicated effort. This practice was very secretive, and its knowledge was guarded and protected from corruption by the few people who possessed it. Now much information is available online and in printed texts. The secret mantras and procedures are common knowledge, but the underlying philosophy of the practice, which is essential for the practice to be successful, is not well understood. In previous times, disciples were taught directly by a guru. That guru made sure that the disciple had the necessary understanding before empowering the student to practice. In the absence of these traditional ways, the practice has taken many different forms. Many people now have turned the practice of Tantra into something very different than what it originally had been. Though nearly all the modern practices of the Sanatana Dharma are Tantric, not Vedic in origin, most lineages do not identify with the word Tantra. The practice of Tantra has become sullied, and the word Tantra has come to carry many negative connotations. Shri Vidya is inextricably connected with the Tantric tradition. So for many people, Shri Vidya also bears many negative connotations. This subject is difficult to write about because people's thoughts of Tantra are connected to many passionate beliefs of people in the East and in the West. It is easy to see how there is so much misunderstanding of the subject when we consider that it is not easy for people to understand spiritual things. Spiritual concepts do not make sense to the intellect unless there is a certain level of spiritual experience. But people's perception is limited. We know what we have experienced through the five senses and intellectualized within the mind. We cannot easily consider subtler things because the senses are incapable of perceiving these things. This could be compared to the inability of the naked eye to see a cell or an atom. The teachings of Tantra are based upon a mystical awareness of nature. Many practices and teachings have arisen from this insight about the subtle elements of nature. These teachings can help a sincere seeker to come into alignment with nature and to transcend the bonds of the limited perception which influences human thought and behavior. However, to transcend the nature of the body and mind, we must train ourselves to defy the instincts of the body and mind. Until we do, the body and mind are no better than a prison for the soul. Every action has been predetermined by certain factors influencing the mind, and the notion of free will is an illusion. Yet with training, the body and mind can be honed into implements for our self-actualization and self-realization. This is, in essence, the teaching of Tantra. This teaching cannot be easily understood because people do not have awareness of the spiritual energies and the elements of nature upon which tantric practice is based. Tantra often tells the aspirant to defy the senses of the body and the logic of the mind. As such, it seems irrational to those who contemplate it. It is not a practice of intellectual understanding, but a path of direct experience. Not a path which fathoms the infinite, but a path which allows awareness to merge with its source. Though it is not a path which can be understood, many have thought about Tantra a great deal. Thousands of scholarly texts have been written on the subject, and these have encouraged even more thought on the subject. Tantra has been badly misunderstood. In the West, Tantra is misunderstood. In India, Tantra is misunderstood. By atheistic scientists and scholars, Tantra is woefully misunderstood. By many devout practitioners, Tantra is sorely misunderstood. I'll stop there for now and comment a little bit upon what we've read. Surely it's a very challenging subject to talk about, to write about now. People are very, very passionate about certain things. Religious concepts, people are very passionate about. If it's a matter of faith, people often have their emotions caught up there in this leap of faith that they take. They say we shouldn't talk in polite company about religion, about politics, about these kind of things, about ethics, morality, because people get very emotional about it. And when we talk about Tantra, we're talking about recommendations given by the sages for how we live our lives so that our lives can become an instrument for helping us to come to realization of the divine, realization of hidden things. We talk about levels of consciousness, we talk about purity. Because of course, if there's unresolved mental impressions, they may call vasanas in the mind. It will limit our perception of higher things. If the subconscious mind is pure, the person will be spiritually aware. If the subconscious mind is impure, the person will be bound by whatever the nature of the contents of the mind is. This is a teaching of yoga, this is a teaching of Tantra. But it is subconscious, right? What people are bound by. So they're unaware. On some level, maybe they have some awareness, but they have a resistance because the nature of the mind resists. Just like the nature of the body resists pain, resists danger. So people become very defensive when they get challenged in their notions of morality. They like to hold other people to a high standard, and they are ready to excuse themselves and be very merciful, to forgive their own mistakes while always being ready to condemn others around them. This is the nature, human nature of the mind. When we talk about the Shri Vidya tradition in particular, we're also talking about gender. Divine masculine, divine feminine. And there's a very impassioned sort of debate going on in the world today about gender roles in society and what the people of different genders can do, and if people can determine their own gender, change their gender. So there's a lot of debate about gender, and people's notions of gender are changing. And the traditional recommendations of Tantra, which promote the divine feminine, which promote the rights of women, are not necessarily going to be viewed as popular in modern Western society. Secular thinking is different. Spiritual thinking is different. In the Hindu tradition, we talk about gods and goddesses. There are devas, spiritual beings, that we call devas or devatas. They're very similar to the angels, archangels of the Christian tradition, the Abrahamic traditions. They're not God. They're not the supreme. They're not the formless Brahman talked about in Upanishads. They're not the Parashakti talked about by the Shakta Tantra traditions. They're not the formless source from which all creation has sprung forth. They are in fact created, just like our souls have been created. At the time of the creation of the world, these different spiritual beings were created to guide the events in the physical realm from the spiritual realm. They are very real, living beings. They don't take birth, generally. Maybe sometimes we have a divine avatar. Some traditions believe that. Some traditions don't so much believe that. But they have an awareness of their connection to the source. They describe the goddess, the Parashakti. Parashakti is the same as Brahman in the Upanishads. Parashakti is the goddess, the formless absolute from which all creation springs forth. This is the dot at the center of the Shri Yantra. Why do we all wear potu? Why do we all wear bindi? Bindu. Sanskrit word is bindu, meaning a dot. It's the symbol of the one supreme from which all of creation springs forth. In the center of the Shri Yantra, in that central triangle, there's a dot. When we draw the yantra, we draw the dot first, and then we come outward to mimic that pattern of creation. When we worship the goddesses in the yantra, we start on the outside and move inward to mimic the process of the soul tracing itself back to its source. The Shri Yantra contains all the elements of nature. All the elements of nature are contained within the human body, and they're contained within the world, the universe around us. So in the practice of Shri Vidya, by knowing ourselves, we come to know everything around us also. If you know the elements of the body, in the body, the 5 elements take form as 3 doshas according to Ayurveda. There are different tissues in the body, different organs. There are different subtler bodies. There's the body of prana. There's the body of thought. As we become aware of these subtler bodies, the subtler elements within us, we become connected to nature around us. We start to see how the weather patterns affect our body and our mind, how the phases of the moon and the transits of the planets. We had a few days back the transit of the sun back into the first sign of Mesha, Aries. Is the Vedic New Year for a lot of people, or sometime right around that time. The transit of these planets into the different signs and houses has a great effect on our consciousness and our body, and the effect and the events we experience in life. The more we become aware of the subtle elements in the body, the more we become aware that our thoughts and our consciousness affects the atmosphere around us. The agitated minds of people stirs up the weather. That's why it's good to make ourselves very peaceful meditating. We'll calm the weather. If a hurricane is coming, a tornado, tsunami, you can calm it by sitting and meditating and feel that intense energy of the storm and be at peace. And if you're at peace feeling that, it will start to calm that situation. Maybe you have to practice meditating a bit to come to the point where you can do that, but it's entirely possible. And it's even more possible if we employ the different techniques of Tantra, using the different ritual offerings and mantras and mudras, different visualizations and meditations, ritual actions. It can help to empower our meditations to increase peace in the world, increase human prosperity. So the more we come to peace and joy and bliss inside ourselves, the more we heal the world's consciousness and bring other people to peace and bliss. We ease the troubles. If there were more people doing these practices very sincerely, we may not have had to experience the COVID pandemic that happened a few years back. So it's very good to study sincerely. But it's very difficult for people to understand. And not having the spiritual experience of the subtler things within themselves, not having faced the contents of their subconscious mind. People try to think about what has been written in the scriptures. People may think about what I'm saying and try to argue and debate the philosophy. There are different ways to describe the truth. The one way I'm describing it now is not the only right way to describe. It shines a light toward the truth. We can never capture the truth in some simple words. It's ineffable, the truth. We cannot speak it. Maybe best we can do is say some of the sacred mantras. Om Lalitambikaye Namaha. We say the name of the goddess, and maybe this is the best we can do to speak the truth. But then people will start to think, what does that mean? What does those sounds mean, Lalitambika? Who is Lalit goddess Lalita? Shri Lalita Tripura Sundari. Who is this goddess? And what do these syllables mean? Shri La Li Ta. People will think, we can find descriptions in the Shastras of what each of these Sanskrit sounds mean and get a sense if we put it together. La, li, ta. What does it mean? Of course, then we come to an intellectual description. People try to understand, who is this goddess? You are the goddess. We are all the goddess. Everyone you ever encounter is the manifestation of this goddess. This is why I don't personally believe in avatars, divine incarnation. I believe everyone is a divine incarnation. Some have realized it to some extent, some have not realized it at all. The world is an emanation of the supreme, formless goddess Parashakti. We're like hairs growing out of the divine body of the goddess. Each hair may have an individual existence, but it's all connected back through the goddess, from which it originates. The hair is a part of the goddess. The goddess is in the hair. In Ayurveda, they say that the hair is a waste product of the bone tissue in the body. It's made from the body. So how can we say the hair is not a part of the body? Even if you cut the hair off of the body, it remains that it was created by the body. It remains connected to the body. That's a concept that the black magician is no longer physically attached. It was created by your body, and it can connect the person energetically to you. Same concept with a saint. If we're a saintly person, if we have a piece of their hair, it's energetically connected to them. We get their blessing. They say the only power the goddess does not have is the power to separate herself from the creation. The goddess is in everything. All of the divine elements, the different tattvas of creation, the three gunas, the subtle elements, the pancha mahabhutas, the five elements, earth, water, fire, air, and space or ether. The goddess is all of these. They say the Pancha Shiva, the Pancha Brahma form of Shiva relates to these five elements. We see these guys sitting around the goddess when we see the depiction of Sri Lalita Tripura Sundari. She is all five of the elements because they've been created from her formless form. Unlike the physical body producing hair, she has no form, but then she also is every form that's there. Everything in the universe is her. But how do we see this? You can hear what I say. You can understand possibly what I'm saying. But can you see it? How do we see this? This is the purpose for the system of Tantra, the system of Shri Vidya revealed by the sages, to help us to connect our awareness so we become aware of the subtle elements in our own body, so we become aware of the presence of the goddess within all creation, within ourselves. If we can bow to the goddess in everyone we meet, we'll start to see the goddess within ourselves. We'll start to see the goddess in everything, and life will become blissful. Life will become a joy. Troubles vanish. Our worries vanish. It's hard to get upset with people when we see them as the manifestation of the goddess. That's why I say every soul is an avatar, potentially at least. But none can exist without the goddess. None can act without the goddess, whether they're binding their consciousness, causing more karma and suffering and ignorance. It's none of our business. The goddess will use the ignorant people to bless us, to bring back our karma to us so we can get free from it. We have to understand these basic concepts. Endless debate goes on, but I'm talking from the years of practice I've done under the guidance of my teachers that brought me to some experience of the goddess. I try to share the ways that we do these practices so that you can also practice and come to some experience. It's not a dogma. It's not a philosophy. Simply suggestions, probably wise, given by the sages, wise suggestions. It may be beneficial, may be applicable, not always applicable. Don't take my word for it. Explore the practice and come to your own realization. It does no good for me to have any awareness. I'm not trying to convince you of anything except for to explore and come to the truth within. I can't even tell you the truth in words. I started saying that and I'll end saying that. All these words, I've written a book, but what use is the words? Because they can only possibly hint at the direction in which you need to look, the direction in which you need to start walking to come to the realization within yourself. So I bow to you. You are the living manifestation, the avatara, the Supreme Goddess, Sri Lalita Tripura Sundari. Om.